Hello everyone and welcome to the Back on Track webinar. My name is Isabel and I'm an Education Community Manager here at ACCA. Now, if you've recently experienced an exam setback and need help getting back on track, remember that you're not alone. This session is designed to help you overcome that disappointment and plan for success in your next attempt. We have a lot to cover, so I'm just going to move over to the agenda now. So, as I said, the purpose of this webinar is to provide practical guidance on how to reflect on your recent exam attempt and use that experience to help you plan the next steps with confidence. We're going to also look at things like building resilience and the decisions you need to make next, as well as ACCA resources that will help you along the way. Today, I am delighted to be joined by Kritika Adatia, our Digital Education Delivery Lead, and she's going to be joining us later in the session for a live Q&A. But before we get stuck into all of this great content, I'm going to quickly run through some housekeeping points. So at the bottom of your screen, there are several icons you can use. There is a help icon, and this one looks a bit like gears. That provides the resources you need to resolve any technical issues you may experience. There are also icons for the slides and media player, and you'll need to have both of these open during the webinar, so make sure you've got those selected. And you can also rearrange your screen to suit your preference. If at any point your sound isn't playing or the slides aren't progressing, try refreshing your browser. That usually helps. And you'll see that there is a Q&A button which you can use to submit your questions. Now, we have a fantastic team working behind the scenes, committed to answering as many questions as possible. But because of the volume of questions we receive in these live webinars, we can't always guarantee to respond to you directly. But as I said, Kritika will be joining me later, and we've allotted time for a live Q&A. And also, we hope that some of these key topics that we cover in the session will help answer your questions. We also have an attendee chat function, so do get involved, communicate with your fellow attendees who are also listening in. Any responses you add here, however, will be visible to everyone. Finally, there is a resource icon, and that's going to include lots of really useful links to different resources, some of which we'll be covering in the session. So registering for this webinar means that you'll be sent an email tomorrow allowing you access to a recorded version of the webinar. So don't worry if you miss something, you join late, or if you have any technical issues, you'll be able to access the recording and rewatch whatever it is you might have missed. Right, so time to get started. And what I wanted to do first was ask you a couple of polls and get to know a bit better where you are on your ACCA journey. So on your screen now, hopefully you'll see a poll that's come up, and we want to know what was the last exam, or perhaps even exams, that you sat. So I'm going to give you a minute or two just to submit your answers there. Please do get involved. That's great. I can see some answers coming in now. Brilliant. So as I said, this is asking what was the last exam you sat, and you can see the options there. They're all the strategic professional exams, the options. So do select the relevant answer for you. Thank you. Lots of submissions coming through now. I'll give you just a little bit longer. Right, that's quite a lot of you now, so let's see the results. Okay, so there's a spread. You know, a few of you have taken advanced taxation, small amount, but you know, still there. It looks like the winner is the strategic business reporting, which has got about a third of the results. So let's move on now to the next poll. And so what we want to know in this poll is what your plans are for the next session. So the options here are: have you booked your next exam in December? Are you still deciding what exam to take in December? Are you not planning maybe to take any in December, but you're going to take them in March? Or finally, maybe you're not sure when to take your next exam. So again, I'll just give you a minute or two to submit. Thank you. I can see lots of people getting involved. So yeah, don't worry if you haven't made a plan yet. Let us know. Hopefully we'll give you the confidence in this session to go ahead and put your plan, a new plan, into action. Okay, that's quite a few of you have responded now, so let's see the results. Okay, well, a vast majority of you have booked your exam and it's going to be in December. So that's nearly 70% of you. So, but some of you are still on the fence, still deciding what to do. Some of you aren't planning to take any. Well, regardless of your decisions for the next session, what I hope this webinar will do is give you the kind of information and the tips you need to start moving forward and progressing through the ACCA, through your journey to ACCA qualifications. So we're going to move on and get stuck right into the content now. So we're going to start with reflections. And depending on the outcome, results day will have stirred lots of different emotions and your reactions will have been very varied. But self-reflection is a really important step on every learning journey. Whatever your result in your last attempt was, taking time to reflect is extremely beneficial to your future studies. So what we're going to do now is we're going to consider some useful questions to ask yourself and the areas for reflection that will help push you forward and increase your chances of success. Right, so let's start with the positives. Pause and think about what you have achieved so far. Remember that this is supposed to be a challenge, and that means the journey to ACCA qualification is likely going to have some tricky moments such as this. So at this point, it's helpful to remind yourself what you've achieved so far. Remind yourself of your goals, and this is hopefully going to help you regain motivation and visualize next steps more clearly. And even if you weren't successful, there's still going to be some positives that you can take from the experience. So, for example, if you were a marginal fail, you absolutely have what it takes to resit and pass the exam next time. Identify and maintain the good habits that are going to help you in your next attempt. And now let's turn to areas of improvement. So, for reflection to be as effective as possible, you really need to review your recent experience as a whole. So what we mean by that is think about the learning, revision, exam experience, and exam performance. You have to be honest at this point. You have to be objective. It's really tempting to avoid critical self-reflection as it can be uncomfortable, but it's going to be much better for you in the long term. Think about how effective all of these stages were. And then we'll move on to the next section, which is what needs to change. So things to consider. There's a lot of different things to consider. So let's talk about some of them. So in your last attempt, what challenges or problems did you encounter? Were some of these problems out of your control? So by that I mean distractions at work or home that impacted study time. If that's the case, maybe take some time out and think about how you're going to reduce the impact of similar distractions in the future. Or you might realize that there's something you can work on, and that could include time management or gaps in knowledge. And at this point, it's really important that rather than dwelling on failure, focus on the positives and focus on finding solutions to any of the problems that you've identified. And so let's think about this fun. You really cannot approach your next exam in the same way and expect different results. So it's really important to think about a clear plan of action. And this is going to look different according to your circumstances. So, for example, those of you who achieved a low score or perhaps encountered unfamiliar topics in the last exam, the problem may be due to a lack of technical knowledge or gaps. And whereas students with borderline fails, they may need to reflect on their exam technique rather than gaps in the knowledge. So maybe they need to think about how they manage their time in the exam. But either way, something is going to have to change. Think of it this way: if you were cooking a meal, it turned out badly, you're not going to follow the same recipe next time, are you? Reflect, and if you still can't work out what's gone wrong, perhaps reach out to a student or to a tutor or your fellow students and get another perspective. Question practice and effective debriefing is going to help you identify gaps in knowledge or issues with exam technique, but we will come on to that in more detail in the later in the session. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play a video conversation that was recorded for Back on Track by one of ACCA's expert tutors, Jo Tuffill. She had a really nice conversation with a student and they discussed how he got back on track following multiple fails. So let's check that out now.
So, hi Lance, thank you for being here for this Back on Track webinar.
Hello, yes, I did the ACCA and I was going through it pretty smoothly, I thought. A couple of small hiccups, but it was the very last exam that I really ran into trouble with. It took me, I have to admit, embarrassingly, 7 times before I passed it, but I passed it that 7th time, thankfully. Yeah. I know. I think what was key, though, to keeping me going and trying again was how ACCA kept in touch. I would get prompts in my inbox and my email to the Keeping in Touch facilities and the webinar about what you need to do to get yourself back in a position where you can take another exam. That really helped.
That's what we're doing today. Yeah, we're living and breathing it, yeah?
Absolutely.
There are expert tutor webinars for subjects, aren't there? And isn't that one of the things that helped you get through because you saw Ben Wilson?
I did, through the ACCA, got myself back onto a course that would provide additional support to tackle the exam and also important information that I would need in the exam. And that really helped.
That's brilliant, isn't it? And so that ultimately pushed you over the line.
It did, yes. I'm not a young student. I'm perhaps one of the older ones, so it's great to have nailed that at last at my age. But to know that ACCA were, in many respects, rooting for me all the way was really encouraging as well.
Well, that's great, Lance. That's brilliant, isn't it? It just proves that your story is never give up and seek support.
That's right, absolutely. Yeah, I tried to do it for a couple of years on my own. I couldn't, so definitely keep in touch with ACCA, take those support classes, very important.
So I hope it was useful there to listen to a fellow student who experienced setbacks along the way. A key aspect of getting back on track is to remember that you're not alone, and Lance referenced that in the conversation. Lots of our students will fail at least one exam and they go on to reach their membership goals, and if you don't pass, try to see the experience as an opportunity to build resilience. And what I'm going to do now is spend a little bit of time exploring what that means in more detail. So what do we mean by resilience, and how can you become a resilient student? Well, first, resilient students are those who have encountered and found ways to overcome challenges. Setbacks are very normal. These are temporary, not permanent barriers to your success. Sure, progress may be a bit slower than you would have liked, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to reach your goals eventually. So part of being resilient is recognizing that plans change and being willing to adapt to those. Now, we've already kind of touched upon this. Practice positive thinking. Don't be your worst enemy and let negative thoughts derail your efforts. Try to practice positive thinking. Remind yourself of your accomplishments and the reasons for pursuing ACCA qualification. It can be really, really easy to lose track of why you're doing what you're doing, so revisit your goals regularly for a motivational boost. Talk to someone. This could be your tutor, fellow students, a manager at work. They're going to help you maintain perspective and keep you on track. Now, preparing for periods of stress, which will come, will be vital for developing resilience. How we view stress strongly impacts on our ability to deal with it and to go on to succeed. So focus your energy on the things you can control and the techniques that you'll use to deal with stress in the future. Part of this is looking after your well-being. You need to give yourself some time to recover after a stressful experience. And let's have a look now at a few ways you can look after your well-being. So lots of advice is universal. So we're thinking maintain a good sleep routine. Eat well, stay hydrated. Basically, you'll need to ensure that your body's receiving all the nourishment it needs, and that will be greatly beneficial to your wider well-being. Thinking about studies plans now, make sure you build in time for regular breaks and make sure to take the breaks, because I think we all know from experience that often these are the things that slip, but they're really important. And getting outside for fresh air when you can, connecting with family and friends, spending a little bit of time on the things that you enjoy, this is all going to help you relax and put you in the right frame of mind when you resume studies. Don't set yourself up for failure by taking on too much at once. Reflect on your commitments, such as your personal life, trips away, work and everything, before you set study goals. It's much easier to keep up than catch up, and this means being realistic about the time you have to prepare. Also share your study schedule with your family and friends so they know when to give you space for more focused study sessions. This is going to reduce the impact of distractions and interruptions, and that's going to help you feel more positive and productive. Right, you should also be mindful of your study environment. So think about where you're studying. Is it bright? Is it clean? Is it tidy? I was talking to someone on an Instagram session recently about the saying, tidy desk, tidy mind. So have a look around, see what state it's in. If you need to, you might need to spend some time decluttering and creating your ideal workspace. Connect with fellow students, support each other. You can reach out to other students on the ACCA learning community, and sharing your experiences with people who are going through the same thing as you is going to help you feel less isolated. Lastly, why not research some stress management techniques and explore the options that are going to work for you? So we hear from a lot of students who feel like their nerves impacted them negatively in the exams. So have a look into how you can deal with that. It could be exercise, physical relaxation techniques such as deep breathing and meditation. And also make sure to check out the ACCA Wellbeing Hub on our website for guidance, and there is a link to that in the resources. Now, I'm going to turn to another conversation with our tutor, Jo, and this time she speaks to a different student who was surprised when he failed an exam, and then what he did to recover from the disappointment.
Welcome, Ara. Thank you for joining me in getting back on track. Do you want to start with just telling everybody a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, so I started ACCA a couple of years ago. So I had exemptions for university, and then I had a tax exam that which I had to sit. Once I passed the tax exam, then I moved on to my finals.
So what happened in your journey?
So December 21, I took the audit exam, and when results day came out, I was thinking, yeah, I've done well, prepared well, quite confident, wrote so much. And then when results day came out, I looked and it was like 48. I was like, that didn't go to plan. Wasn't the result I expected.
No, so you expected to pass. You felt you'd done enough.
Yeah, confident when it came out.
Even more of a blow, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Did you reflect a little bit on what had happened?
It did. It knocked me down initially, but then sometimes in life, sometimes you have to fall to actually get up. Booked myself straight away to do the March exam. And this time it was literally solely just trying to get as much exam practice as possible, doing questions to time, going back to areas where I actually thought I was weak on, actually allowed me was pass the exam. But the weird thing was in that March sitting, I came out not confident, whereas in December I was confident.
And what did you get?
I got 58.
Wow, that's really good. And you did that by basically going over your weaker areas, didn't you? Not hiding away from them, it sounds like, and forcing yourself to do these questions to time. Time and time again, we have students who try and avoid the areas they don't like. And that's where they come up a cropper, don't they? So you have to practice things you don't like.
You ruin the questions that you get marked on and see where that weakness is, how you've written it, and then see the feedback that you get from the tutor and see how you can actually change the way you answer.
Yeah, the support that you get from your tutor is paramount. Everybody really must try and get support. If they can't afford support from a tutor, then you just need to find a study buddy who can help you as well. It's much better if there's an independent looking at it, isn't there?
Yeah, 100%. So luckily I had Ben as a tutor, and Ben was always open to answering my questions. And at the same time, I actually had some of my friends were actually taking the same exam. So I had that study buddy as well, where we would all do questions at a time and then actually go review our answers, and we'll be like, what did you say? And then what did he say? And what did I say? And then see where points that I've not made, someone else would have made. So then I can learn from that.
It's brilliant news that you're nearly finished. I think you've got 2 more exams to do. What's your top tip for resitters?
Practice questions are important for passing the exams, because when it comes to doing these computer exams, time will fly away. But if you're doing questions so many times, you start to get the hang of the feel of what type of questions you're getting, and in your head, you're mentally more prepared.
Do you feel that the first time with AAA, you didn't do that enough, those question practice?
100%. 100%. Although I was confident on the day of the exam, practice questions, I think I lacked. Maybe it's because I've started revising a bit later than I should have. But again, you need to make sure you prioritize how you have work and study. The study life balance is important. So you've got to be prepared to be saying no to certain meet up with friends or events.
Yeah, you've got to basically plan it all in. And I think that's the key to this webinar. I think when we finish today, people should really focus on the fact to get back on track, you need to plan to pass. And part of that planning is making sure you plan in your me time, your work time, and your study time.
That's correct.
Thank you, Ara. That's been great.
Right, I hope again that was another useful video. So Ara touched upon a few different things in that video, some of which we will talk about in a bit more detail soon. But obviously he did mention that he had study buddies, he had people to talk to. So just reinforcing that that point once again, that you're not alone and there's lots of people you can speak to and help each other push forward. So moving on now, it has been a week since results were released, and hopefully you've had a little bit of a chance to pause, maybe reflect, digest those results. But now, or very soon anyway, you're going to need to refocus and begin making your decisions. So what I'm going to do is break these decisions down to 3 stages. First, you need to review your plans for December. So depending on the results of your last attempt, do your plans need to change? So think about it. If you're a marginal fail, for example, it might be better to resit quickly, but that could mean that you're taking on 2 exams. So consider whether you're going to be able to devote sufficient time to prepare for multiple exams. It can be better to postpone an exam that you haven't already attempted than to try both resit and attempt that new exam simultaneously, if you see what I mean. But this all depends on you. So to the pass mark, how are your new studies going for that new exam? These are all things you need to consider and will be personal to you. But all of you need to think about what you're going to do differently. Draw on your reflections from your last attempt and really think about what you're going to change, because something needs to change ahead of a resit. We do always really strongly recommend studying with an approved learning partner. So if you haven't already booked something, many do offer shorter revision programs, so have a look around. So the next section, it's your schedule. We've got 6 weeks to go. You need to make sure you plan out your study and revision time from now until the exam day and stick to it as much as possible. First point to make is that you should review the syllabus, make sure that you're aware of any changes. Then you need to think about how much time you're allocating for each topic, make sure you've allocated time for every topic. And then you need to schedule adequate time to complete mock exams to time and for effective debriefing. And we're going to look at that on the next slide. But it's really important that you do schedule time for that exercise in your study plan. Now, the final section on this slide is about exam entry deadline, which is approaching. So when you're in an exam environment, you're operating under pressure, and this gives your performance a boost. You can recreate that feeling of pressure in your studies. So book your exam. It's going to give you a clear deadline to work towards, and it's really going to focus your learning. Plus, you'll begin receiving structured support via our in-session email series in the countdown to exam day. And that's a really, really handy resource. It's going to highlight the key activities and the resources that you need to be covering each week up until exam day. So let's move to question practice. So there really is no better way to prepare yourself for an exam than to practice under exam-like conditions. It's a real vital part of any study plan. So you need to make sure to use the ACCA practice platform to attempt questions and familiarise yourself with the exam format. Ideally, you're going to want to sorry, I should have brought that up. 1 second. There you go. Ideally, you should try to complete 2 full practice exams under exam conditions as part of your revision activities. Ara mentioned this in the conversation with the tutor, Joe, and said it really, really helped when he came to resit. It really cranked things up a notch. So we really, really recommend doing that, and to replicate the real exam environment as much as possible as well. So by this we mean shut yourself away somewhere, tell family and friends not to disturb you, resist the urge to look at your books, and really, really focus. For this activity to be as effective as possible, you need to be disciplined and practice to time. And all of this combined is going to help you understand what areas you need to focus on, be it technical knowledge or exam technique. You need to keep an eye on what you're getting wrong, if there are any patterns emerging when you do your practice, but also crucially you need to try and understand why you're getting them wrong. Spend some time revisiting the topic areas that you're finding you're weaker in. Keep on practicing them until you master them. And Joe mentioned this in the video. It's very tempting to avoid the trickier topics or the ones that we don't like, but it's really crucial that you do spend some time on those. Give them as much time and maybe more time than the ones that you find easy. At this point, it will be time to self-mark and debrief, and I want to have a look at that in a bit more detail. So to take your question practice to the next level, you've got to debrief your answers, and you can use the detailed marking guide contained in the practice platform. So good presentation is key. Consider if you can make any improvements to the layout of your answers. You want a clear and concise presentation, and this is important not just for the marker, but a good clear presentation will help you as well as them understand what you've covered in your answer. So it's win-win, and it's really worth getting into the habit of perhaps using subheadings and trying to make your presentation as clear as possible. You should also check your answer length and assess whether it reflects the mark allocation. This is really important, but also you should also be looking at whether or not you've answered all of the requirements. So read questions properly so you don't miss anything. We know that's a common issue for students, as well as their struggle to finish within the allotted time. If that's happening during your practice exams, you may need to reflect on time management. There are some good resources on the ACCA website that can help with this. You could also check the examiner report for further tips. Now, the final point in the debrief box on your slide is what can you improve? And this is going to be a theme all the way through the session. We're going to keep on ramming home that you need to identify something that's going to change. You can't go into the exam with doing the exact same things as you've done before, so do keep that in mind. Right, we're now turning to the final days before the exam. So this is obviously a very nerve-wracking time, but there are some things you can do to help manage the stress. Firstly, I'd say visualize success. We've already discussed the importance of a positive mindset, but it's really important. And going in feeling like you can achieve a pass will really do wonders to your confidence. Also, preparation beforehand is going to also help you feel more confident as you go in to the session. So be as prepared as possible. Plan your exam strategy ahead of the day itself. If you're going to go to an exam centre, for example, make sure you know the route and how long it will take you to get there. For students taking the exam via remote invigilation, you should check again your equipment, internet connectivity and exam environment to make sure it meets the rules and requirements. And you need to do that in the days leading up to your exam. It is important to do it again because your computer settings or connectivity may have changed or been updated since you booked your exam. Hopefully, as we've just covered, you will have been practicing under exam conditions prior to exam day. So that means if you have done that, it will mean that when you come to the real thing, you're going to feel better prepared and more in control. You can go into the exam, you can use the approach that you've practiced through simulation. You really, really want to avoid cramming and rushing at this point. This is going to have a negative impact on your performance. It's going to leave you feeling really stressed before you go into the exam. So practice, get used to the exam environment, be as prepared as possible. So next, we have time. So exam success is a combination of your technical knowledge and your ability to apply it to the scenario and questions in the exam within the available time. This is a big issue, and it's one of the main reasons that students fail. So I'm going to just repeat myself. It's really, really important to just practice, practice, practice. What I'll say at this point is that it's important to remember that you're not trying to write a perfect answer. You just need enough to get through. So nobody's going to get 100%. It's just not realistic. Instead, you need to be disciplined, aimed for a focus answer rather than lengthy ones. We'll talk about this maybe a little bit more in the Q&A, but basically practice is going to be really, really integral into making sure that you cover what you need to in the allotted time. Now, finally, remember, nerves are normal. You're going to undoubtedly feel nervous. That's very normal, and the feeling of pressure, as I've already alluded to, can be beneficial to your performance, believe it or not. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. I've definitely been guilty in the past of thinking I'm the only one who suffers from nerves. That's obviously not the case. Everyone's going through their own thing. All you can do is focus on yourself and focus on what is within your control. So that's the last point, and it's really key, because you're going to be nervous the night before, you're going to be nervous in the morning just before the real thing. They're normal, and there are, you know, certain things that you can do to help you overcome that. As we said earlier, try and have a think about some stress management techniques that might help you at that point. So I'm going to have a quick look through now some of the ACCA resources that have been developed to support each stage of exam preparation. And actually, many of the resources are beneficial throughout. So let's have a look at what's available. So ACCA resources are developed to support each stage of your learning. And so that's planning, learning, revision. And as I said, some of them can be carried through. Just a quick reminder at this point that you can access links to these resources via the webinar resources icon. You can explore them in your own time, and I really recommend you do. I won't go into a huge amount of detail about every resource, but hopefully I'll give you the highlights. So we've talked about this quite a lot now, but it's really, really important. Question practice in the real exam environment, essential for exam success. It's really therefore really important to use the ACCA practice platform. Our ACCA website is packed full of study support resources, including syllabus documents, video content, articles, examiner reports, and so much more. So make sure to bookmark the relevant exam page for you and take some time to go through those. If you need help planning your calendar, Compass is the tool for you. It's integrated with your MyACCA account, and it enables you to organise your study time. And you can set yourself daily tasks and milestones. You can also reflect on how you feel about certain tasks. So you can track, you know, what the patterns are, what tasks make you feel positive, what ones scare you, and so on. The next resource I wanted to mention is the Get Ready modules, and these are really, really, really fantastic. They include self-check quizzes, which assess your underlying knowledge and help you identify areas that you need to revisit ahead of your next exam. And for options exams, we also have some really good knowledge recap e-learning modules. And so this is all going to really take your learning, your preparation to the next level. It's going to help you strengthen areas that you might not necessarily be as strong in. So do check those out. We do have an ACCA student study resources YouTube channel. This includes a host of curated videos which are arranged into playlists by exam, as well as an archive of webinars that you can view on demand, such as this one. We have a student podcast series, and what we've done is we've included a link in the webinar resources tab to a new episode in which we speak to a newly qualified member who suffered setbacks in his own ACCA journey. So do listen to that. Hopefully it'll be an inspiring story for you. Because if you take anything away from this webinar, remember that you're not alone. It can feel very isolating. It's really easy to beat yourself up if you've had a fail, but head over to the learning community, connect, support each other, find a study partner, for someone to be accountable to, reach out to each other. Now, final point I want to make is on a new test that ACCA is running in partnership with the British Council. So students often worry about their English language skills and wonder if it impacts on their exam results. What I'll say and what I want to stress is, rest assured, students are not penalised for spelling and grammar mistakes as long as the marker can understand the point you're making. However, it's understandable that you may want to get a grip of your current level of ability, as that's a useful first step in planning how to improve your English skills. So if you do want support in that area, like I said, ACCA and the British Council have teamed up to offer ACCA students a chance to complete a language test, and you'll receive a professional certificate at the end. I've as I said, we've included a link to our web page in the resources tab, which explains all of this in more detail. So do check that out. Now, finally, we want to look at professional skills. So in the previous exam session, we introduced professional skills marks for options exams, except advanced taxation. So what this means is the exams have 20 marks awarded for professional skills which are demonstrated throughout the exam. The time duration remains the same, which allows you to more effectively manage your time to answer the 80 marks allocated to technical knowledge. Again, I'm not going to go into huge detail about these resources, but I did want to give an overview of what's available to you and what you can use to further understand this change and what it means for your exam prep. We have Professional Skills in Strategic Professional Options PDF guide. That sits on the ACCA website. Videos are also available from the examining team on each professional skill in relation to AFM, APM and AA. This is third A there. We've obviously recommended practice enough, but do take a look at the practice platform. Take a look at the specimen exam to see how exams are now displayed. Each question links back to, Each question links back to the professional skills and lets you know what skills are being assessed. In addition to the specimen exams, there'll also be practice exams that will help you prepare. There is an on-demand webinar dedicated to kickstarting professional skills. That's also available on the website, and you can watch that in your own time. And if you're just beginning your strategic professional exams, then we do highly recommend completing the ethics and professional skills module first. It needs to be done anyway to qualify, and most importantly, it's going to help you develop the skills that you're expected to then demonstrate within the exams. We've also got the Read the Mind of the Marker articles, which are a must read. They give an indication into what would gain a mark and what wouldn't. And if an answer isn't achieving a mark, they provide recommendations on how you could improve it. So it's a really valuable insight into how to gain those professional skills marks. As always, you're going to receive lots of support via the in-session countdown emails and student accountant app. So watch out for those as well. Now it's almost time for the live Q&A, but what I wanted to do just before that is pause and give you an opportunity to share your thoughts on what you need to do differently next time. So use the attendee chat function, comment on what you think needs to change in the lead up to your next exam. I'll give you a minute. Don't be shy, do get involved. Have a think about what you're going to do in your next attempt, what you're going to do differently. No? I'll tell you what, I'll bring up some ideas on the screen, hopefully get some ideas flowing. So you could change the structure of your revision plan. You might want to attend a revision course or use the ACCA practice platform. I see Haroon has come in here. They are going to, practice exams under time conditions. Perfect. Yes, Alina's saying the same. That's perfect. It's really, really important. Cover all topics, not just groups yet. The bad bits. Yeah, it's really, really, really easy to avoid the bad questions, the scary questions, but it's really important that you spend some time practicing them, mastering them. Stricter study plan coming through, more exam practice. Yep, definitely use the practice platform more often, says Emmanuel. This is really good to see because it really will help you. It's really going to help aid your learning and your revision and take it to the next level. Some other ideas I'll get up on the screen. You might want to debrief your questions more thoroughly. You might want to use stress management techniques if nerves has an impact on your exam. And obviously do a marked mock exam. Great. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, guys. It's really nice to hear from you, and it looks like you've really nailed some of the key things that you need to do differently. So I think this is all looking great. Right. So as promised, we've got some time now for Q&A. So I'm going to welcome on my colleague, Kritika. Hi, Kritika.
Hello. Hello, Isabel. Hello, everyone. It's great to be joining you for the Q&A. Great session as well. I felt like I learned loads there as well whilst you were passing on those useful nuggets for, being back on track.
No, it's good to hear, and I know that Kritika, you've gone through exams before, so you know how the pressure and how intense it can be. So
it can be very intense. And actually, what was really nice is when you asked the last question, what are you going to do differently? I saw a couple of students sort of email or message through the Q&A, and Yelena in particular was like saying not start from question 1. And that's a really interesting thing, because I remember when I was doing my exams, I would often fixate on starting with question 1, but actually there's nothing in like rules that state you have to start from question 1. If you want, you can absolutely prioritize, and I think prioritize is the key word there. If you feel more confident and comfortable starting with a question in section B, well, do it, because actually what you'll end up doing is, focusing on the question that you feel you're really comfortable to bosh out. And that might even leave you a bit more time for some of the other questions that you might otherwise feel a little bit more challenging. So I do really like that as a point that Yelena's made. So a really good thing, and something maybe other students want to consider taking on as well. Don't feel like you have to start with question 1. You can absolutely prioritize.
And this actually, Kritika, just goes to show the benefits of talking to other students, of reaching out to your community, because sometimes it's very easy to get stuck. Like if you haven't passed an exam, it's going to knock your confidence, and it's going to kind of make you lose a little bit of perspective, perhaps, because I mean, like it would anyone. And so just chatting to each other, it's so helpful. You can get these kind of ideas that might have not have occurred to you before. You never know.
Absolutely,
but we have
absolutely.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No,
I was going to say,
should we dive into the inbox?
Yeah, I think we're both just so excited. Right, so Kritika, do you have any questions for me we could get started with?
Yeah. So there was a couple of students sort of messaging about, previous failure. So a particular student here having sat their last paper 2019, a particular exam they've sat sort of 8 times. And actually a lot of it was really nice to see the honesty in the chat with students talking about how many attempts they've taken to pass a particular exam. But really just a question here in terms of, a student has developed a bit of anxiety over passing a particular exam. Isabel, I know you spoke a lot about well-being and sort of that positivity aspect, but is there anything else that you could add to that, or additional support that ACCA might have in terms of managing anxiety, particularly ahead of another exam they might be taking because they failed in the past?
Yeah, I do think it's really tough to fail, and it's really tough if you failed more than once. It's demoralizing. I mean, and then it kind of sometimes grows bigger and bigger and bigger in our mind, and we let those negative thoughts take over. And I do understand that, but that's why we do have these really great resources to help you. If you're returning to studies after a break, there is actually a really good section on the ACCA website that's dedicated to students coming back. You might want to check out the Get Ready modules, which we touched upon briefly earlier, because these are going to, like I said, they're self-check quizzes. And what they'll do is they'll show you where you have gaps in your knowledge. And it also gives tailored feedback, which will help you understand where you go to top up that knowledge. And like I said, there's obviously the e-learning modules as well. So do take a look at those. I think that it's really important to, I don't know how to say this, with kind of, if you're coming back from a break, just do take some time to get to know your exam, develop the insight into the exam, make sure you understand what's going to be assessed, what approach you need to take to it. In terms of anxiety and well-being, obviously we've covered some of the tips of how to deal with those, and I've I've had massive nerves in the past, and I'm gonna say it again. The way I got over it was practicing. I used to hate presenting. Now look at me now. It's because I did it over and over and over again. And also had the support of people like Yukatika. So again, reach out to people, find other students who are returning after a break and share your experiences. Right.
I think that's a really good point that you mentioned, Isabel, about, sort of putting yourself in that position that makes you feel uncomfortable, but knowing that you're going to get growth out of it. So if you are feeling anxious or you're feeling nervous ahead of an exam, the best thing you can do, like you've just said, Isabel, is practice. So get on the practice platform, do a mock paper, do it to time, and actually simulate that environment that you will experience in the real exam. Because the more that you expose yourself to that condition, well, when it gets to the real exam, it won't feel so scary anymore. So definitely, as well, I totally think that's a really, really good point that you sort of make there. Yeah. Should we dip into some of the other questions coming through? Isabel, actually, what I did just want to pick up on, I'm noticing some questions coming in about sort of just professional skills. Someone is talking specifically about business acumen. I just want to flag that actually in November, what we are running is some YouTube live sessions for the strategic options papers that have professional skills embedded. So running for AAA, AFM, and APM. These are going to be on our YouTube channel, our Student Study Resources YouTube channel. So earlier when Isabel was talking about the resources, she mentioned the YouTube channel, and then in the attendee chat we sort of posted the link to the YouTube channel as well. It's in the resources that Isabel mentioned. Go to our channel and you'll be able to sign up. You'll be able to click on an icon that says notify me, so when we do go live you'll get that notification and you can join us live. So these are being held in November. The dates have escaped me right now, but they are in the first 2 weeks of November. Okay, so definitely do watch out for those. For those that are in the Q&A in the background, if you could just remember the dates, just pop them in the attendee chat so our students know, and we'll share the link with you guys there as well. So do just want to mention professional skills. We've got you covered with our sessions that are coming up. Okay. Isabel, should I just pick up one of the other questions that's come through about difficulty trying to type on a keyboard and sort of finding that they prefer writing an exam by hand? I know that sort of question has come through in the past. So students having a preference for pen and paper versus doing an exam on the computer. And I just want to say that actually when I took my exams, I remember it was pen and paper and I got really used to it. And then there was a slow transition to getting things on the computer. And as with change, there's always that sort of hesitancy or that fear when change comes along, but it's something we really have to embrace, because in today's day and age, technology and digital devices, that is what we use in our personal lives, but in our professional. And the way the qualification is moving is really trying to sort of replicate that. So in terms of your comment, difficulty sort of typing on a keyboard, one way to already, getting on the practice platform, using the functionality we have there. We have a blank workspace functionality, and you can practice typing out an answer there. The more that you get practicing using a keyboard, hopefully you'll become quicker and better at it. Okay, so it's all about embracing the fact that things are moving digitally. We're trying to replicate what we see in our professional lives. So it's all about jumping on board and getting on the practice platform there. So hopefully that deals with that question.
No, that's great. I was going to just pick up on a question from someone about, so what if a student reflects on their last exam attempt and they just don't understand where they went wrong? And so we're probably thinking about people here, a marginal fail. Think it's the 46 to 49 zone, because you can be kind of confident in your knowledge, I think, but if you've reflected and you really can't find anything that you went wrong, I think maybe it's worth reaching out for expert help, so study support. If you can, then look to getting a mock with a learning provider. That will mean that you receive tailored guidance support on where to improve. But Kritika, do you have any other suggestions if you're trying to get over the line, and go from that kind of very annoying marginal fail to a pass?
Marginal fail to trying to pass, yeah. It's a difficult one, because if you've only missed by a couple of marks, and you're thinking, what, you did all the right things, you were doing the question practice, you felt like you managed, the time fine in the real exam. It's a really difficult one. But all I would say here, and something you touched on earlier, it's sort of being able to move past that kind of, oh, damn it, I failed, and not sort of dwelling on it too much. And now just thinking, okay, I didn't get the 2 marks that I needed to pass. Let's just focus on going forward. So the best way you can go forward, and especially if you're a marginal fail student, I imagine you've got the technical knowledge under your belt. So here on, it's all about getting the exam technique on point. It's all about making sure that you are getting to the end of the exam. So using the practice platform and the mocks that are there to practice further. I don't think there's a secret bit of tip that we can give you to help you in terms of, what exactly you can be doing differently, because you're probably doing all the right things, and it might just have been unfortunate that you narrowly missed. And remember, if you're doing one of the strategic marks for professional skills, so do just think about whether you're displaying those professional skills whilst you're writing up your technical answer. Okay, when it comes to time management, especially for these exams, you're focusing on the technical marks. There are 80 technical marks in these strategic professional options exams, 20 marks for your professional skills. You have therefore 2.25 minutes per mark. Okay, if you think about it, that's a decent amount of time. Okay, but do make sure you're then also weaving in things like, are you demonstrating commercial acumen? Are you showing skepticism? Are you communicating using the right tone of voice? It's all those little things that you might want to be mindful of as you think about bridging the 2 or 3 marks that may not have got you the pass this time round. Isabel, we did have a student just asking, how do I log into the Get Ready modules? What I'm just going to do is I'm going to share on the chat here the Get Ready modules page. I think, Isabel, you've linked it to the resources already, haven't you? But we'll just pop it on the chat there so that students that are looking to access the Get Ready modules, you can do that through that web link that we've just shared.
And just to mention as well, as we're on the attendee chat, that I have shared links to the upcoming YouTube sessions, which will support your understanding and application of professional skills. So do notify yourself via YouTube so that you don't miss out. Kritika, we're probably running low on time. I think we probably have time for another question. I just wondered if you could help with this one. Because we know that a common theme that comes through is time management, and what are your tips for people who struggle to manage their time in the exam?
Okay. Do you know, this was always a tough one for me as a student as well, because I was the perfectionist that wanted to get every aspect of a question correct. And what that often meant is that I would spend too long on the first question and then not leave myself enough time for the later questions in the exam. And that is probably the worst strategy you can adopt, because if you don't get to the end of the exam, you're really just jeopardizing your chances of passing, because you're just not presenting the examiner with an answer to mark. So in terms of how I would approach time management, I would figure out how many marks it is per minute for a particular question. So earlier I said, for the strategic professional options exams, you're generally looking at around 2.25 minutes per mark. So if a question is worth around 10 marks, well, you should only be spending 22.5 minutes on that question. If you end up spending half an hour on that question, you're basically not doing it correctly. And by that, what I mean is you're not going to get to the end of the exam. You actually need to discipline yourself to think, okay, right, 22 minutes is up. I'm going to leave this question for now, and I'm going to move on to the next one. And remember, it's about the breadth of coverage, not the depth. Don't fixate on writing everything you possibly know about a topic under the sun to get as many marks as possible, because that is not going to work. Okay, you have to answer the question that's been set. Rest assured, our exams go through strict QA procedures, so they can be answered within the time frame available. And as Isabel said, you're not looking for a perfect answer. You need 50% to pass. Anything more is a bonus. So discipline yourself. The key takeaway there, discipline to move on, to get to the end. And the way to do that is jump on the practice platform, get onto the question practice, and make sure you get to that last question. Because if you don't, you're just jeopardizing your chances. So hopefully there's some nuggets there for our students to take away.
That was brilliant. Thank you, Kritika, and thank you so much for joining us, because I think you've always got such great insights for our students. Sadly, though, that's all we have time for, so I'm going to have to wrap things up. I'll just quickly mention again that if you've registered for this webinar, you will receive a link tomorrow, meaning you can rewatch it again in your own time, just in case you missed anything or joined late. I'd like to say thank you. Yeah, thanks again, Kritika. Thank you. A big thank you to the
Thank you
ACCA
for inviting
team.
me.
Oh, no, anytime. Thank you to the ACCA team in the background answering questions. But mostly thank you to everyone who's attended today. And I want to just finish on this note. Persevere. Keep your goals in mind. You can do this. And good luck. Bye-bye, everyone.